interesting situation because it's an adult, but with students, I think, I don't know if any of my peers would agree with me on this, but I think it's important that like we are watching, like we have adults watching our social medias, because there's been a couple of shootings, I can't remember which one specifically, but the shooter had actually posted pictures of guns and stuff on their Instagram before, and if they had just looked into that, it could have been something that they could have addressed before the shooting even happened. And I think it's important that if we have our faculty or administration or whoever watching our social medias, then that could better help. And from the mental health side of it too, watching what kids are putting out there too, because that can show signs of if their mental health is.
And Riley, you're telling me that we as a school should insist that you guys have open social media profiles that the school can have access to?
I mean, I don't think anyone would like that.
Avery's about to disagree with you.
Yeah, she would disagree
Yeah, right,
with you, but I
right.
think, I think our school should be watching what we're posting.
But once you just come up with a Finstagram account,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's my issue.
I just learned that word.
Yeah.
I'm very proud of that. Finstagram. I just learned. I'm old.
Like you can easily make a Finsta or just like a random Twitter account, and that's where you can post pictures and tell people about it. So I think that's virtually impossible for.
Not that you would ever do that to your own
Right.
parents. I'm just saying theoretically it could happen, right? Okay.
But you mentioned like if they hadn't acted on the report, and I researched something called the threat assessment process that's put out there by the Secret Service. And if I were to like go through all the details, it would take probably like 2 minutes. But essentially, you create a team in a school. And this is different if it was an adult, but when they have like a student that they're watching, if they see anything, well, they're supposed to watch like social media and like their school assignments and their behavior, that kind of thing. And if they ever see anything like weapons involved, then they're supposed to report immediately to law enforcement. So I think it's important that you do act on all possible threats.
We established that there's like basically 750 of you kids on this campus alone. So, which would make you students of age appropriate to have social media accounts, right? I think you have to be 13 or older. Do we feel like we have enough resources in this school to be able to monitor everybody's social media account, or at least the majority of you, times social media accounts that you guys have that I don't even know exist in the universe? I'm just figuring out this whole Instagram thing, so.
No. I think the responsibility falls to the students again in that part. I think it's their job to hold their peers accountable. So if they see any conduct like that, like they should report it to you or anyone else in the school.
I love exactly what you just said. Do you think that that's practical?
No, I feel like people would refrain from it because they don't want to be seen as a snitch. But
Right.
if I saw guns being posted, and if I saw like comments that were like, "I'm gonna shoot up the school," I would tell someone about it. I don't see that as snitching. I see that as a service to the public.
I think it's the responsibility of the parent. I think they need to be watching their children's social media accounts and see if they're posting that kind of thing. But a lot of the school shooters, that's not really, in the past, it hasn't really been realistic. Like they have stable homes. It's important to note that there's no common profile of a shooter, but there's like a majority, and a lot of them have sort of like quote broken homes.
So let's talk a little bit more about that. What is that profile? So broken homes you mentioned.
Yes.
What else do we typically, what is the normal, if we took all the school shootings and kind of averaged all the demographic information about those together?
Usually economic insecurity, so
Okay.
they're either unemployed or they just got fired from a job, or they didn't graduate high school, they didn't graduate college.
Okay.
They're just like, usually they're just in a downward sloping hill.
Mental illness.
Okay.
And some warning signs are unhealthy fixation on firearms, projects like focused on grotesque violence, so that goes back to like school assignments, or praising other infamous school attackers.
And 75% of school shooters felt bullied or harassed by their peers.
Okay.
So it's someone that obviously feels as if they've been bullied. Anger, resentfulness, things like that are very common.
Okay. Do we have age demographics, gender demographics?
Mostly male.
Yeah, mostly white males.
Mostly males? I would say vastly, predominantly male,
Well,
right?
there have been some incidents with females, but they don't really amount to much.
So should we start profiling them and checking just the social media accounts of the males in the school?
I don't think the school should check profiles. I really just think that should be the parents' job.
So let's dig into the parent, because I'm also a parent of 2 school-age kids. Do your parents monitor your social media accounts?
Yes.
They do?
Yes.
You don't have like a Instagram account, they don't know?
No.
You don't have to tell me what do you,
Upstairs.
what do you,
Oh, they
no,
just
we're
said we
good.
should monitor their social media.
It's on film, so I wouldn't get to it. What do you guys see as the most effective way for a parent to help come alongside their student and monitor those things?
I would say just, like, this sounds very cliche and
Yep.
unrealistic. Well, but I just think a parent should be loving and, like, check up on their student or on their child and make sure, like, their mental health is stable. Make sure they're not, like, actually going through really deep, like, dark issues inside where they could act out with violence at school or anywhere else.
Just investing in your children in general, it affects us, you know, we just, you know, a lot of the issues is with kids is the mental illness and, you know, not feeling like loved and stuff, and that's just like the job of your parents to show that they care about you and they love you and all that stuff.
Do you feel like, since you are a pretty close-knit group here, you mentioned bullying is there are high statistics. Do you all see bullying and think of it as harmless sometimes? Or, I mean, how can you know how it's impacting students? Have you all
At our school?
experienced that here, or were you seeing kids being bullied?
I've experienced, like, minor bullying just being on the cheer team. Like, you would think, like, you wouldn't think people would say things, but we get comments all the time about how cheer's not a sport and, like, everything we do is dumb and we won nationals, but, like, what's the big deal, you guys? Like, it's just stuff like that. But personally, it hasn't affected me too much because I just have chosen to ignore it because it's been happening for so long. But there's just things like that happen.
I think at our school, obviously, we don't have like a violence issue. Like at public schools, bullying can fall more into like aggression and things like that. But here, I would say it's more just like if we see bullying, it's just like verbal stuff like that. It's comments like that you may not think are affecting people, but like you know, you remember what people say. Like
Yeah.
that's hurtful.
Do you think
So, I was just gonna say, so when you see Avery getting bullied, do you ever stand up and say as a peer? Like, I mean, what if, she says it's been going on for years and she's just used to it.
I think even
Do you as a friend, would you stand up or step in or report it if you saw?
I would hope that I would say that I would, but with things like that, I think kind of like she said, we're just like things like that. It's just we're so like used to
You
stuff
just
like
act
that.
like it doesn't
Yeah.
affect you.
Do you think there's enough training that addresses anti-bullying as far as in the schools?
Honestly, I don't even know.
Training
Is there any,
for students or for teachers or just
All
in
the
general?
above.
I don't know if
I've never
teachers
heard
are
of that.
trained. I think no. I don't, if they have meetings, I don't know.
Because I see that, you know,
I'm not aware of that,
obviously there's after shooter trainings and, you know,
Right.
you've got response versus prevention. So are we doing enough to actually prevent, you're talking about with bullying training versus how much time that we spend on active shooter training? Should we spend more time on things that could help prevent that rather than?
I would say it would be smarter to focus on bullying than shootings because bullying statistically occurs more than a shooting would happen. So, but I mean, I remember chapels and seminars and things like that where we've had people come and with a slideshow about bullying, and it's actually been pretty effective because it's like giving me an insight into like how many people are actually going through that, and it teaches us what to do if we see it, to stand up for them or get them, things like that. I find that's helpful.
I agree. I think also, like you said, I think teachers should be more prepared with how to deal with bullying too, because, you know, even with just things like the cheerleading comments, I've never heard a teacher tell students to stop saying those things. I mean, and I feel like they should. That should be like their job too, not just ours. Both. It should be both the student and the teachers to stop it.
Do you find it surprising that it's in your handbook or, you know, policy about not bullying, but the teachers aren't trained on identifying or
I didn't know that
dealing
was-
with it
yeah.
as well as you all not having any type of, even a chapel or anything on it?
Sorry, boy by work is always calling. Let me ask you ladies a question. So we talked about school shootings. We talked about response to school shootings. Do you feel that teachers should be trained to respond to a school shooter? So as an active, if there's an active shooter, should they take an active role in going and addressing that? We did some training here a couple of years ago. Officer Hart facilitated it, and I know we had mixed reaction from our faculty base of the thank you for training us. I feel more prepared and ready. We had others who said, listen, I don't feel like I'm somebody who could respond in that kind of way. Now, certainly I would like to secure my students and make sure that they're safe, but I don't know that I would be the person to react, to maybe go and approach that situation. What do you ladies feel like the faculty and the staff members, what should be required of them in an active shooter situation?
I personally don't think the teachers it shouldn't be their job to like attack them head on, but I think they should be ready.
Except for Mr. Perkins.
Right. He's ready.
Right, he's ready. He's ready to go.
Yeah,
Okay.
if he wants to,
Right.
he can take that. But I think things like I don't have a problem with teachers having things like pepper spray or
Right.
stuff like that, and being ready with things like that in the classroom, so that if something were to happen, I don't think our teachers need to be rushing the halls or anything, but I think they should be ready with things like that if the shooter were in the room.
What should be the expectations for faculty and staff, not just teachers?
It's an interesting question because training teachers to respond to shooters, or like I feel like teachers having guns kind of falls under that category.
Okay.
It changes their job. Like it goes from being someone who's going to teach people something to also kind of being like a half of a police officer too. Like if I wanted to be a teacher, which I don't, but if I did, I wouldn't. And like I had to have a gun or know how to stop a person from shooting my students, then I wouldn't want to do it because that's not the kind of thing that I'd be interested in.
So your thought is that you've been trained to educate students, not to respond to threats.
I feel like it's just asking too much from teachers.
So you feel like it's more of an administrative role to make students, to provide the environment where students feel safe and can learn?
Along that same line, what is the situation though? We go on lockdown and you guys are secured in your classrooms, right? You've got your book bag in front of you, or you're what's your
Or
mom?
she's ready to
You got mom on one side, down on the other side, whispering, do this, do that, right? So you guys are ready. Everybody's locked down in their classrooms, and there's somebody roaming the hall, right, doing bad things. But everybody's locked down in the classroom, and nobody's responding because we're teachers, right? That's not our job. Well, I'm an administrator. I just turn computers off and on all day. I'm not supposed to respond to this. But everybody's locked down. Nobody's addressing the threat. Maybe Officer Hart's just not here that day, or he had to deal with something at the other campus. Who's going to respond to the threat then? If we can't expect our teachers to help respond, or our staff members.
There is one solution. It's not great. Like it would be super fast.
There's no great solutions.
Yeah.
But there's a police call box.
Mhm.
It's like a fire alarm, but it's blue,
Mhm.
and that could be used. But hopefully there would be at least one police officer at all times, just in case that kind of thing happened. But if no one wanted to go address it, if everyone was safe, like they really can't get into the classroom, supposedly.
Mhm.
That's what they say.
Yeah.
So then, I mean, you would be okay to wait maybe like 2 minutes, hopefully, for someone to come.
The police to respond. Okay, ladies?
Well, about those like police call boxes, they just look like the fire alarm things, but they're blue. And I think having those in a couple classrooms or like in the hallways or something like that would be helpful. Because I know a lot of college campuses, they have like the blue light posts, so if like students feel unsafe, they can like press the button and a cop will come pick them up or whatever. So I think that's nice and comforting to know that you have that nearby.
And I also think we could I don't want every teacher, personally, I don't think it's the teacher's job to be ready for things like, we all need to be ready, but it's their not job to attack it head on. But if, for instance, Officer Hart wasn't there, I think we should have some people in administration that are trained, just in case he's intimidated, which I don't know if we currently do.
Are
but,
trained to respond or
trained to respond.
permitted to carry a weapon?
Trained to respond,
Okay, not carry a
not
weapon.
carry a
I was just curious
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
you thought the response
No,
was
not carry a
appropriate.
weapon.
Not a wrong answer, just curious.
Well, I think it would be a smart decision to offer an optional self-defense class for teachers or students if they want to attend. That way, when there is a shooter, and if Officer Hart isn't there,
How about
don't-
if there is a shooter?
Well, yeah, if there's a shooter, then the faculty and the students who are trained, they can step out into the hallway if they feel led to, and they know that they're prepared to take it on. and I think that'd be beneficial.
So most public schools, they have a resource officer that's there all, like that is their job. They're there all day. And, does it, I hear you all saying you feel safe when knowing that Officer Hart is here, but he's not here all day. Does that take away some of your, feelings of being secure and safe because your armed officer's not here full time, or does it make you feel, would it make you feel better having somebody here during the full time that you're in school hours, like, say that's dedicated like with public schools?
As long as I don't know that he's not here, I think it's fine. Like, I don't know.
I personally feel safe just because of the school I'm in, not because Officer Hart's here 24/7.
It's the environment.
I feel safe because of the environment we're in. It's a Christian school. I think we do a good job at putting good values in this school, and we all have, like, a lot of the administration have really helped us with our faith a lot and stuff like that. So that's why I feel safe. So I don't, I think it'd be nice if he was here all day, but that doesn't really affect how I feel.
Are you aware of any instances where you've been put on lockdown because of something that's happening near the school or with a family member? That while there may be somebody in school and if there's something going on with a family member and they have put you on lockdown and it's an outside,
I've been in one of those situations before, but not at LCA.
are you aware of that happening at LCA?
Well, I just remember at Tate Street campus, there was someone who broke out of a prison, and we had a lockdown drill. And we were all at recess, and they were like, "Recess is over, come in," and we were all like, "What?" And then we just went inside, and that was that. But
Is it more familiar that you've been on lockdown before, but you don't always necessarily know the reason for that? Is that good? Should you know all the details behind the lockdown, or should you just know that this was something that was executed for a reason and that they were keeping you safe? Do you as students need to know the reason for every lockdown?
I don't think we do. I don't think we need to know every reason. I don't think it affects us.
Anna Riley, you mentioned that you felt safer because you're in a private Christian school. Do you think there are any circumstances in the world today where that actually makes you more of a target?
Yeah, I think, I can't think of anything like specific, but I know Christians, they are the target, they can be the target sometimes, but, I put my faith in that no matter what happens, I'm gonna be okay, so I think I bank on that.
Talk a lot about gun violence. Is there any other threat to school safety other than guns?
there's always the issue of like sexual harassment and things like that occurring, like whether it's after school at a sporting event or like during school, but we don't see things like that much at LCA, I would say.
Do you think it's an issue that should be handled at a federal level, or do you think that individual school districts or schools should be able to determine regulations as it relates to school safety?
I would say school districts, because every area of the country is completely different in their, like I would say Atlanta, like central Atlanta has much greater concerns for school safety than like Lexington, Kentucky would.
Or even Lexington from like where my mom's from, like Somerset, little Somerset school. It's gonna be different than how we have like Grand Station or Tits Creek. It's just different.
How's it different than Western Kentucky, the little school in Western Kentucky? Marshall County.
Yeah.
I think they should.
Do you think they thought anything would, I'm just curious if that's the argument. Do you think that
Yeah.
they thought they were in Marshall County, Kentucky, that would ever happen at their school?
I guess we talked about metal detectors at school, and certainly Fayette County has, I don't know if all of them have them, but certainly they do have them at a fair majority of them. Do you feel like metal detectors are something we should institute here at LCA? And if so, both campuses, one campus?
No.
No, why not?
I just feel like it's much more of a hassle and much
Yeah.
more of a cost that's just unnecessary.
Talk to me about the hassle and the cost, because it's
Like
important to me.
having to wait in line at the front of the school to have my bag just like opened, that just
Yeah.
seems pointless to me. And Brennan was telling us about TSA.
TSA.
What's it, the red team?
Red.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's called the Red.
Where they've gone through metal
The red
detectors
team.
with firearms, and
Yeah.
they
This is TSA.
they send like secret,
Yeah.
like undercover TSA people to like with
And they-
actual firearms, going through metal detectors and going through scanners, and they haven't even caught them.
Is the Transportation Safety Administration testing out airport scanners? Is that what we're talking
Yeah.
about?